So, good morning everyone. So, I'm John Franz B. Isinder, and I am assigned to report the sustainable development and the growth. So, let me first start in the sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? So, it's a global call to action to end poverty, protect the Earth's environment and climate, and ensure that people everywhere can enjoy peace and prosperity. And our set of policy goals that attempt to implement the principle of sustainability on the economic, social, and ecological level in every country of the world. So if you could say it's a global call to action to end poverty. So as we all know that poverty is one of the factors that affects the growth of the economy. So as we all know that in the Philippines, so our country, which is Philippines, is a developing country. So which is the poverty is very rampant and very known. So because of many individuals are not able to go on education, so protect the Earth's environment and climate. So we all know that climate change is one of the factors that affects the damage of our environment. So as we all know the effects of our as we all know that in the 21st century, diba, the emergence of different technologies and machineries will become dependent on it in making growth or making the growth of our economy. So we are become dependent. And aside from that, the effects or the consequences of those technologies become more observable. So just like what we have experienced last year and in the latest super typhoon, which is Agaton, and the last year happened in December, which is Typhoon Odette. So it was proof enough that that was the effect or the circumstances or outcomes or the impact of the if we continue abusing our environment. So that's to protect the Earth's environment. So it is what is sustainable development? So it is to make the world a better place for everyone without destroying the possibilities for the next generation. So that's the sustainable development. And now let's proceed in degrowth. So what is degrowth? So degrowth is an idea that critiques the global capitalist system which pursues growth at all costs, causing human exploitation and environmental destruction. So the degrowth movement of activists and researchers advocates for societies that prioritize social and ecological well-being instead of corporate profits over production and excess consumption. So this requires radical redistribution. So reduction of material size of the global economy and a shift in common values towards care, solidarity, and autonomy. So degrowth means transforming societies to ensure environmental justice and a good life for all within planetary boundaries. So degrowth is a planned reduction of energy and resource use designed to bring the economy back into a balance with the living world in a way that reduces inequality and improves human well-being. So the term degrowth refers to an economic situation during which the economic growth produced does not increase or even decrease. This concept is to be distinguished from the recession, a simple observations of a negative growth rate in a context of productivist economy. So the concept of degrowth is a voluntary process and not a reality. So it is based on the principle of awareness of a finite world. So with limited resources and on the idea that only a reduction in global production and consumption can ensure the future of humanity and the preservation of the planet. So that is what is degrowth mean. So degrowth. So if we say that a human exploitation. So human exploitation, it is a human activity or human impacts that produce the damage of our environment. So those overpopulations, there's a human impact, overpopulation, diba? Pollution, burning fossils and fuels, and many more. So that's human exploitations, and it also said that it is environmental destructions. So deforestation. So that's an example of deforestation. So I think that would be all that is degrowth and
Examples of degrowth: individuals switching to a less materialistic approach to life, prohibit plant obsolescence, switch away from private cars, growing own food, suppression of advertising from public space, organic food over non-organic, making use of empty houses rather than building new ones.
As defined by the 1996 World Food Summit, food security refers to the condition in which all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Food security is often defined in terms of food availability, food access, and food utilization. Food availability is achieved when sufficient quantities of food are consistently available to all individuals within a country. Such food can be supplied through household production, other domestic outputs, commercial imports, or food assistance. Food access is ensured when household and all individuals within them have adequate resources to obtain appropriate food for a nutritional diet. Access depends upon income available to the household, on the distribution of income within the household, and on the prices of food. Food utilization is the proper biological use of food, requiring a diet providing sufficient energy and essential nutrients, potable water, and adequate sanitation. Effective food utilization depends in large measure on knowledge within the household of food storage and processing techniques, basic principles of nutrients, and proper childcare. So why is food security important? It helps to enhance the productivity and consecutively the production of food. It can assist in providing opportunities for income generation, and it generally provides improvement of nutritional advice through home economics programs and enhances the quality of rural life by way of community development. Successful food security and poverty-oriented programs not only assist poorer population to produce more and diversified products, but to produce a surplus that can be marketed and thereby generate income for the purposes of improving quality life through improved diet and nutrition, investment in productive activity, and as collateral for credit to purchase inputs and or other supplies to enhance agricultural or non-agricultural enterprises.
Global citizenship. So what is global citizenship? Global citizenship means an awareness of the interconnectedness among people, societies, and environments around the globe. It emphasizes responsibilities and contribution to a global society and economy. When students develop a sense of global citizenship, they learn to respect similar universe values such as peace, sustainability, and upholding the human rights and dignity of all people.
Global citizenship means an awareness of the interconnectedness among peoples and environments around the global. It embraces responsibility and contribution to our global security or economy. When students develop a sense of global citizenship, they learn to respect similar universal values, shows us praises studentability, upholding the human rights and dignity of the people.
What did the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development do? The global goals and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development seeks to end poverty and hunger, realize the human rights to all, achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls, and ensure the lasting protection of the planet and its natural resources. This agenda is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace and larger freedom. It recognizes that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, it is the greatest global challenge and the indispensable requirement for sustainable development. All countries and all stakeholders acting in collaborating partnership will implement this plan. It resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and to heal and secure our planet. Is determined to take and bold and transformative steps which are urgently needed to shape the world into a sustainable, resilient path. As it embarks on this collective journey, we pledge that no one will be left behind. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets which is announced demonstrate the scale and ambition of this universal agenda. They seek to build on the Millennium Development Goals and complete what this did not achieve. They seek to realize the human rights of all and to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. They are integrated and invisible and balanced in the three dimensions of sustainable development: the economic, the social, and the environmental.
By endorsing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, the world community reaffirmed its commitment to sustainable development. Through this agenda, 193 member states pledged to ensure sustained and inclusive economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection, fostering peaceful, just, and inclusive societies through a new global partnership. The 2030 Agenda is universal, transformative, and rights-based. It is an ambitious plan of action for countries, the UN system, and all other actors. The agenda is the most comprehensive blueprint to date for eliminating extreme poverty, reducing inequality, and protecting the planet. The agenda goes beyond a rhetoric and lays down a concrete call to action for people, planet, and prosperity. It encourages us to take a bold and transformative steps which are urgently needed to shift the world into a sustainable and resilient path. How did we get here? Gaining momentum since the 1972 UN Conference on Human Environment all the way to the 2015 UN Sustainable Development Summit, the 2030 Agenda is a culmination of more than 4 decades of multilateral dialogue and debate on tackling environmental, social, and economic challenges faced by the world community. Adopted as a result of extensive negotiations among member states, the accountability for the implementation of the agenda primarily rests with the national government. Core principles underpinning the 2030 Agenda embodies the following core principles. Universality. The 2030 Agenda is universal in scope and commits all countries, irrespective of their income levels and development status, to contribute towards a comprehensive effort towards sustainable development. The agenda is applicable in all countries, in all contexts, and at all times, leaving no one behind. The 2030 Agenda seeks to benefit all people and commits to leave no one behind by reaching out to all people in need and deprivation, wherever they are, in a manner which targets the specific challenges and vulnerabilities. This generates an unprecedented demand for local and integrated data to analyze outcomes and track progress, interconnectedness, and indivisibility. The 2030 Agenda rests on the interconnected and indivisible nature of its 17 SDGs. It is crucial that all entities responsible for the implementation of SDGs treat them in their entirety instead of approaching them as a menu list of individual goals from which they can pick and choose. Inclusiveness. The 2030 Agenda calls for the participation of all segments of society, irrespective of their race, gender, ethnicity, and identity, to contribute to its implementation. Multi-stakeholder partnership. The 2030 Agenda calls for establishing multi-stakeholder partnership for mobilizing and sharing knowledge, expertise, technology, and financial resources to support the achievement of SDGs in all countries.
What is transforming our world? The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Dimensions of the new agenda. At the heart of the 2030 Agenda are 5 critical dimensions: people, prosperity, planet, partnership, and peace, also known as the 5Ps, traditionally viewed through the lens of 3 core elements: social inclusion, economic growth, and environmental protection. The concept of sustainable development has taken on a richer meaning with the adoption of the Agenda 2030, which builds upon this traditional approach by adding 2 critical components: partnership and peace. Genuine sustainability sits as the core of these 5 dimensions. The 5 dimensions inform development policy decisions. This means that for a development intervention to be sustainable, it must take into account the social, economic, and environmental consequences. It generates and leads to conscious choice in terms of the trade-offs, synergies, and spin-off it creates. Additionally, policymakers need to ensure that any intervention is developed, owned, and carried forward with the relevant partnerships and leverage the appropriate means of implementation. In this way, the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs together represent a holistic approach to understanding and tackling problems by guiding us the right question at the right time. The Sustainable Development Goals, contrary to what many believe, the SDGs do not represent the agenda in its entirety. They are not a summary of the agenda, but rather focus areas necessary to achieve sustainable development. The 17 goals should be seen as indispensable piece in a big and complex puzzle. In order to truly understand the agenda, one needs to look at the puzzle as a whole, but at the same time, it is impossible to complete the puzzle without those pieces. SDGs are not pressure points that have the capability to affect the well-being of the entire planet and the people who live on it. Because the SDGs are the result of extensive political negotiation and individual consultations, they are not perfect, but inarguably represent some of the most urgent and universal needs of the world today. The SDGs help translate the core values and principles underlying the agenda into concrete and measurable results. Not all goals have the same standing. While some goals appear more overarching or final in nature, others can be seen as means to those final goals. For example, we do not only pursue the water and energy goal, SDGs 6 and 7, for their own sake, but because clean water and energy are meant to the true goal of health and well-being. Number 1, however, clean energy and water are such crucial issues that they demand specific focus. Looking at some SDGs as means to other can help us appreciate the interlinkage of the SDGs. Thank you.
So I assigned to record the topic Side Trip Elysium 2013. So before I start, so this topic is about a movie. So the film starts quite strongly as it juxtaposes the situation on Earth and Elysium to highlight the problems of social and economic inequality. So set in the year 2154, the film opens on a dystopian Earth where human civilization has been divided into two classes, the Earth and the Elysium. So let me discuss first what is Elysium. So Elysium is a giant wheel in space with an artificial atmosphere where folks live on the inner ring in really luxurious style, and also it's a massive utopian space, or it is a man-made station space, catering only to the super rich or the wealthiest individuals who can afford to live in its decadence. So clean air to breathe, green scenery, and free medical treatments for every conceivable ailment. So they even got all the latest advances in modern science with a machine that can cure just about anything. For that, if nothing else, the people living there want to keep it to themselves. The sit-up alone emphasizes the economic gap between classes, and just by association impregnates Elysium with the illusions of a social commentary. So that's a Elysium. So where the people or the high classes or the wealthiest individuals who have an access to live a very convenient life, where everything is provided, and they are very advanced in terms of modern technologies and sciences. So now let's proceed to the second class, which is Earth. So the second class, where overpopulated surface festering with poverty and still reside the ultra poor. So who live in a seemingly endless landscape of shanty huts and trying to survive with no medical care and barely a scrape of food. So back on Earth, that the planet has just become one big polluted mess, where everyone is just scratches out of living the best they can. It's patrolled by robot bullies who keep the great mass in line. Everyone yearns to go to Elysium to live the good life. So in the second class, where the poorest among the poor live, so they don't have any access to experience a very convenient life compared to the people who lives in the Elysiums, where there is no medical care, where there is no the involvement of the advancements of modern technologies and sciences, where everything is very hard for them. So the peoples on earth or the second class aiming to live in the Elysium.
Rafael Capaeng Petrola Mariano is a Filipino politician. He was a member of the House of Representatives for Anak Pawis, serving from 2004 to 2013. He is also the chairman of the Farmers Militant Group, Kilosang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas, and he is the current Secretary Department of Agrarian Reform or DER. He became the regional vice chairman of the Alyansa ng Magbubukid sa Gitnang Luzon, Central Luzon Farmers Alliance in 1984, and as Secretary General of the Kilosang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas. Farmers Movement of the Philippines in 1985. He later served as the movement's national vice chairman and national chairman. And also his objectives is to improve the quality of life of our farmers is the commitment of the Duterte administration. And he has been pivotal in promoting farmers' rights and welfare and ensuring their security of land tenure.